Hey, how you doing? It's 8-Bit Eric. I am absolutely excited to talk about today's game. This is a game that had been on my radar for quite some time. It's Immortals Feynx Rising. Now, this is an open world game set with a Greek mythology setting. I just happen to think Greek mythology is freaking amazing. So in this game, you play as a character named Fenyx, and at the beginning you could choose whether it be a male or female. Basically, you could customize your own character, their face, their hair, their voice, and what type of body they have, or their skin tone, or anything like that. And they're a character by the name of Fenyx. And basically, you wake up stranded on a Greek island called the Golden Isle, and you discover that you must rescue the Greek gods from a monster called Typhon, who basically is seeking revenge against Zeus. Zeus is always in trouble. It's always Zeus's fault at the end of the day in anything with Greek mythology. And on top of that, you have to deal with people that have been turned into stone, including your brother. But I'm not going to get much in way of spoilers. So there is a plot that surrounds the rescue of the gods. Now, again, this is an action-adventure game. It has a lot of third-party open-world mechanics that you see in a lot of these games, such as like a skill tree and some combat mechanics and some light RPG mechanics. If you played any other Ubisoft open world games, then you will be able to jump into Immortals Feynx Rising because it has most of the majority of gameplay features that these games have. Simple enough. Now, the game is set in a large open world that consists of about 7 different areas that are all inspired with Greek mythology. So you'll see like an area that's Athena's map, Aphrodite's, and Ares, and other parts like that. You'll see references to like Hercules and Achilles. And so if you're familiar with Greek mythology, you're going to see a lot of stuff that you're like, oh, wow, this is this guy and this and that. And the similarities, first and foremost, let's just get the elephant out of the room, because everybody's probably going to say this in their review about this game, or if they're watching reviews or playing it for the first time, you guys are going to compare this to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, mostly because of the graphic style of this game. The artwork kind of has that colorful, almost like a watercolor cel-shaded type of look that kind of looks really animated, like it's not so much realistic. It's more like a colorful, like it's almost like a real life drawing that's really neat to look at. The similarities are uncanny with the art style of the Wind Waker and Breath of the Wild and Twilight Princess, but most of all, its 3D engine plays a lot like a Legend of Zelda game, like Breath of the Wild, because there's a stamina bar. You can climb cliffs, and the stamina bar comes up just like in Breath of the Wild. You have a bow and arrow. You're able to glide. This time you use wings instead of a paraglider. You're able to glide and explore the open world. And the combat mechanics are similar to Zelda games. And you're not entirely wrong on that opinion. I would say there is a lot of inspiration from Breath of the Wild and other Zelda games that are on this. But we've also seen a lot of Breath of the Wild clones come up in recent years. I think one of them was a Wind, it came out not too long ago. I don't even remember what the hell it was called. It was like Wind something. That one was heavily inspired. Oceanhorn is heavily inspired. There's been a lot of these. But I think Immortals Feynx Rising is actually able to stand on its own accord as far as being a Breath of the Wild clone, because there's actually quite a bit that I feel distinguishes itself as something else. For example, it has a lot more RPG mechanics and upgrade mechanics than Breath of the Wild does. Now, Breath of the Wild does have crafting for cooking. This one does just have potions that you can craft, but the upgrades on your weapons are better. There's no breaking of the weapons, so you don't have to get frustrated like you did on Breath of the Wild, but you can upgrade the power and the attack level of all your weapons. You can upgrade your skill tree set. You have so much more different types of actual combat upgrades and weapons that you can use in this game compared to Breath of the Wild. So, for example, you can unlock different combos to use in combat. You can do a charging swing with your sword or your axe. You can have power-ups for how your arrows affect. The combat, I feel, is much wider than Breath of the Wild. And even the dungeon exploration, because you'll come across different puzzles and stuff on the map that are similar in nature to Zelda, like moving a big block, pushing it on a switch, or a button and then using your bow and arrow to hit a target. A lot of that is fine and dandy, but you'll also find these rifts, which are similar to the shrines in Breath of the Wild, but I would say these are a lot more action-oriented, a lot more intense with the puzzle elements in them. You know, Breath of the Wild had, like, having to use, like, your Sheikah Slates abilities and stuff to be able to solve some of the puzzles. And a lot of these are similar. You'll end up seeing like levers where you have to lead a ball to like a certain switch or move a block somewhere, or you have to open something and make your way past a doorway that's currently blocked and fight like a big enemy. I would say the rifts feel a lot more like a traditional dungeon than the shrines did in Breath of the Wild. So I feel they just actually were inspired by Breath of the Wild, but they changed enough to where it feels like it's a lot bigger. For example, there's so much more to do in this world. It doesn't feel as empty as Breath of the Wild did as well. And the world feels a lot bigger. You can collect different types of mounts. You can fly. You can fast travel a lot easier than Breath of the Wild did. So there's a lot of different twists and stuff. I feel it's not completely fair to say that this game is a Breath of the Wild wannabe. Maybe inspired by it or an homage to, but I feel in the grander scheme of things, I would say this plays a lot more like one of the open world Assassin's Creed games than a Breath of the Wild game, because Zelda games are not really traditional RPGs in the sense of what this game feels. I think Breath of the Wild was the one that really started to try to do a little bit more RPG elements, but even then it didn't have the skill trees or upgrades that Immortals Feynx Rising does. There's a lot more to the game than meets the eye. There's some grinding required because you have to upgrade your character to defeat some of these giant cyclopses and huge chimeras and griffins and stuff like that. Once in a while, the game will have just a huge creature pop up in front of you, or a wraith that comes after you, the Wrath of Achilles or Typhon. It's almost like a mixture of like Monster Hunter with Assassin's Creed with Legend of Zelda, all put together in some aspects, and it's not bad. On first impression, you might think, oh, this is just a generic open world Breath of the Wild wannabe, but it's not. There's actually quite a bit. This game is beautiful to look at. The combat mechanics are pretty spot on. The exploration's there. You can spend hours doing side quests or gathering, you know, different supplies to upgrade your character before even getting on to the main mission. I was like a good 20 hours in the game just messing around on live stream or playing on my own before even continuing this story. And what's also more beautiful about this is it being an Ubisoft game, it's on all three of the consoles. So if you have an Xbox, a PlayStation, or a Nintendo Switch, you'll be able to pick it up and enjoy it yourself there. Now, this might get lost in the shuffle on the Xbox and PlayStation because 7 days later, Cyberpunk is going to be coming out and everybody's going to move on from Immortals Feynx Rising, which I feel is a shame. I feel that this game is a dark horse candidate for one of the best games of the winter season coming up. It's going to be a game that not a lot of people are going to really sit down and appreciate until it's long gone. I think it's going to be underrated immensely, except on the Nintendo Switch, because Nintendo Switch doesn't have much in way of video games coming out this holiday season beyond the Super Mario port that's coming over from the Wii U and a few other games. So it's going to be something that Nintendo fans could probably sit down and enjoy, a big single-player open-world game that plays just like Legend of Zelda, a beloved Nintendo franchise. Hopefully the Switch port runs properly. Again, I only played the Xbox Series X version, which I had absolutely no problems on, no crashes, no frame rate drops. It looked absolutely beautiful. It was a lot of fun, a huge time sink, and I believe it's going to be a crime when this game gets overlooked. So I'm going to go ahead and rank Immortals Feynx Rising a solid 8 out of 10. I enjoyed it for what it was. I like the art style. I like the theming of the Greek mythology. I like the combat. I like how open world it is, the amount of content that's in here. It's a solid 8. And that's it for my verdict on Immortals Feynx Rising, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, can you hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss when I upload next. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching. As always, I'll see you on the next one. Peace out. Consider supporting 8-Bit Eric on Patreon for just $1 a month. Link below in the description. You want to become part of the hashtag 8BE Nation, guys? Well, be sure to pick up your official merch, now available online. Link is below in the description. We got classic t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, and even women's apparel. Don't forget, pick up your official merch now.
And while you're at it, guys, feel free to watch the next video, or why don't you catch up on one that you might have previously missed. Thanks again, guys, for all the support. I couldn't do this without you. You guys are amazing, and don't forget to subscribe and click that like button if you are brand new. Thanks again, guys. Peace out.